The signal had been drifting through the void for nearly 200 years before it reached them. It wasn't a call for war. It wasn't even meant for soldiers. It was an invitation, a promise that the galaxy was alive, peaceful, united. The words, translated through layers of static and distortion, spoke of friendship, exchange, and understanding. Humanity listened, and humanity remembered what such words used to mean. When the galactic beacon reached Earth, the world had already survived its 1000th scar. Entire continents were dusted with the bones of cities. The sky carried the faint shimmer of orbital wrecks that had burned up long ago. The oceans were quiet, too quiet, reflecting the silence of a species that had learned the price of peace. They called it the last invitation. And this time, humanity answered. The first ship to leave Sol was ISS Vengeance, not sleek, not graceful, but heavy and proud. Its hull was made of iron layered with memory, scorched paint, patched plates, engraved names. Each name was a ghost from Earth's old wars. Behind it followed 7 other ships, each older than the myths people told about them. The Resolute, the Gravesong, the Unity, the Warden of Dawn. Every one of them carried soldiers, engineers, medics, and archivists, all of them wearing the same expression, determined exhaustion. No one sang as they left orbit. There was no grand speech, no anthem, just silence and the whisper of engines pushing against the void. They traveled for 78 years under cryosleep, their minds preserved while the stars shifted. And when they woke, they found the beacon's source, a star system named Helios by its inhabitants, the heart of the Galactic Council. It was beautiful. A golden sun surrounded by 5 green worlds, wrapped in rings of light and silver. Fleets of alien ships drifted like flocks of birds, glowing in elegant blues and silvers. Cities hung in orbit, alive with color. To any other eyes, it would have been heaven. But to human eyes, it was a reminder. Civilization, prosperity, comfort. All the things they had lost, all the things they had bled for. When the Vengeance entered orbit, the aliens of the Council rejoiced. They had waited for this moment for centuries, the day another intelligent species would come. They imagined scholars, explorers, philosophers of peace. What they saw instead was a fleet of black ships moving in perfect formation, silent, armored, and cold. "They come with war colors," one alien whispered, watching the screens. "No, no," another said, trembling. "Surely it is their custom, surely it means honor." The humans didn't respond to hails at first. They simply waited, letting the alien fleet surround them, sensors glowing, weapons powered down, but shields active, always active. Finally, the communication line opened. A woman appeared on every galactic channel, her face scarred, her hair streaked with silver though her body was still young. She wore no crown, no robe, just the uniform of a soldier. "This is Admiral Ria Markov, commander of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet," she said. "We received your invitation." The Council's high speaker, a creature of shimmering light and fractal wings, stepped forward in the holofeed. His voice was calm, melodic. "Welcome, travelers from Sol. You stand before the Galactic Council, a fellowship of peace. You may disarm and dock. We wish to share wisdom, not conflict." Admiral Markov's expression didn't change. For a moment, the only sound was the quiet hum of her ship's reactor. "Peace," she said slowly, tasting the word like poison. "We've buried too many under that word." The line went dead. On the alien bridges, confusion turned to panic. Their commanders shouted for new channels, diplomatic codes, negotiation teams. But the humans didn't answer again. Instead, their ships began to move, not toward the Council's dockyards, but into a defensive wedge. They powered weapons. The aliens hesitated. No one had done this before. No one had ever defied the Council's call for peace. Their fleets scrambled to intercept, sending warnings and pleas. But to the humans, this was not hostility. It was instinct, the same instinct that had kept them alive through centuries of extinction. They were surrounded. The humans knew what to do. On the bridge of the Vengeance, the air was heavy with silence. The crew waited for the Admiral's order. Outside the viewport, the alien armada glittered, thousands of ships, delicate and bright, like glass ornaments drifting in the dark. Markov stood with her hands behind her back, staring at them. "They're beautiful," whispered her second officer. "So are stars," she said, "until they explode." A warning ping echoed. Alien ships locked targeting arrays. defensive drones began forming a wall. "Orders, Admiral." Markov didn't look away from the stars. "No fire unless they fire first," she said quietly. "We came here as guests. Let's see what kind of hosts they are." The aliens fired first. A single shot, bright and blue, meant as a warning beam, struck one of the Terran frigates and scorched a hull plate bearing 300 engraved names. That was all it took. The humans moved like thunder. The Vengeance's main railgun charged, a deep vibration rolling through its decks. When it fired, the shot vanished into light-speed acceleration and reappeared seconds later, tearing through 3 alien cruisers in a single line. The aliens didn't even have time to scream. Every human ship followed suit. Missiles streaked across the void, leaving trails of fire like comets. Kinetic rounds punched through shields. The vacuum became a graveyard of drifting hulls and broken light. To the Council fleets, it was chaos. To the humans, it was discipline. Their communications lit up with calm voices, methodical, precise. "Target Alpha neutralized. Battery 4 online. Next formation advancing." It wasn't rage, it was procedure. By the time the alien commanders realized what was happening, half their fleet was gone. In the aftermath, silence returned to Helios. The alien homeworlds watched in horror as debris rained down into their atmospheres, burning, falling, whispering like dying prayers. Admiral Markov stood on her bridge, staring at the tactical screen. Her eyes were unreadable. "Status," she said. "Victory confirmed, Admiral. No survivors." "No survivors," she repeated the word softly. "So it begins again." She turned toward the viewport. Helios burned beneath her like a wounded sun. And somewhere deep in the quiet of her mind, a voice her own, or perhaps from the ghosts of Earth, whispered. They wanted peace, but they forgot what peace costs. The humans didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. They had only done what they had always done, survive. And far across the galaxy, alien worlds began to whisper the name of the newcomers. Not as explorers, not as guests, but as something far worse. The survivors of 1,000 wars. The war that followed was not planned. Not by humans, at least. It began with fear, the kind that spreads faster than light, faster than reason. The alien news channels called the humans barbaric primitives, a violent species from a dying world. Military fleets rushed to the edges of their territories, preparing to strike before the humans could infect the stars. But they were too late. The humans had already moved. Helios Gate was a monument of peace. A vast ring floating between 2 suns, carved with the banners of 50 alien nations. It was meant to unite the galaxy through trade, science, and shared power. Thousands of ships passed through it every day, carrying goods, diplomats, and pilgrims. When the humans arrived, they didn't fire. They simply took position. Admiral Ria Markov watched the gate from her command seat aboard the ISS Vengeance. Her face was cold, unreadable, lit by the dim red light of the bridge. Around her, her crew waited, silent, disciplined, afraid to breathe too loud. She could feel their questions. Would they fire again? Would they end another world? She didn't know yet. "Report," she said quietly. "Alien fleets approaching, ma'am. 400 confirmed ships, possibly more. Armaments, mostly energy weapons and drone swarms. Light shielding, heavy numbers." Markov nodded. "They think they can swarm us. They've never fought humans before." Her second officer swallowed hard. "Orders." Markov stood, her boots echoing across the steel deck. She looked out through the viewport at the glowing curve of the gate. "Hold position," she said. "Let them make the first mistake." The alien commander, Admiral Zyron of the Thalari Confederacy, believed he understood war. His people had fought border skirmishes for centuries. They used precise tactics, perfect coordination, elegant formations. To him, the humans were savages, still clinging to old metal weapons and kinetic slugs. They couldn't possibly understand real war. He would learn otherwise. "Transmit warning," Zyron said. "Unknown fleet of Sol origin. You are in violation of Council law. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." On the bridge of the Vengeance, the message played across the hollow screens. Markov didn't respond. She simply watched, her jaw tightening. They'll fire soon, her weapons officer whispered. I know, she said softly, and when they do, the galaxy changes forever. The first shot came from the alien flagship. It was small, a test shot, a warning beam, bright and blue. It hit the Unity's forward armor, leaving only a scorch mark. That was all it took. Permission to return fire? The gunnery chief asked. Markov closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Permission granted. The Vengeance roared. Its main railgun fired, the shockwave rippling through the decks. The round was a solid tungsten slug, accelerated to near-light speed. It vanished into the black and reappeared inside Zyron's flagship. The alien vessel didn't explode. It disintegrated. Metal turned to dust. The soundless void bloomed with light. And then the human fleet unleashed hell. To the aliens, it was chaos. To the humans, it was memory. Every shot was precise, every movement rehearsed. They had fought in worse places, burning skis, frozen moons, dead cities. They had fought enemies who used chemical gas, plasma storms, bioweapons. The vacuum was just another battlefield. Kinetic shells cut through alien shields. Missiles streaked like comets. Laser-guided torpedoes tore through the elegant silver ships of the Council fleets. Within minutes, the formation of 400 alien vessels shattered into drifting wrecks and broken light. Admiral Zyron never saw the human fleet close in. His last words, recorded by his dying crew, were quiet and stunned. They are not soldiers, they are storms. On the Vengeance, the bridge shook from recoil. The hull glowed from the heat of repeated fire. Markov stood in the smoke and light, steady as a mountain. Casualty report. 3 ships damaged, minimal loss of life. Enemy status. They're gone, ma'am, all of them. Markov said nothing. Her hand rested against the railing, knuckles white. Broadcast message, she ordered. Open channel to all Council frequencies. The comms officer hesitated, then nodded. Channel open. Markov stepped forward. Her voice filled the void, calm and sharp as a blade. To the Council of Worlds, this is Admiral Ria Markov of the Terran Fleet. You invited us. You called across the stars, asking for unity. You promised peace. Then you fired first. She paused, letting the silence hang. Peace is not given, peace is earned, and we have earned it the hard way, through ashes, through loss, through fire. You wanted to meet another intelligent race. Now you have, and you will remember us. Then she cut the transmission. For the next few hours, the battlefield was quiet. Debris drifted through the void like ash. The Helios gate hung broken, its glowing rings cracked and smoking. The surviving alien ships turned and fled. Some escaped through subspace. Others vanished into the nearest wormhole, never to be seen again. The humans didn't pursue. They simply held the field, 10,000 against millions, and they won. It was not pride that filled them. It was something colder, something heavier. Survival. When the reports reached the Galactic Council, the chamber erupted in panic. Leaders shouted over one another. Generals demanded war. Priests demanded prayers. The oldest among them simply sat in silence, trembling. They are monsters, one said. No, another replied, voice shaking. They are what monsters fear. They sent fleets, dozens of them. They gathered every army they could find, every weapon, every ship, every alliance. They called it the Coalition of the Enlightened. Their goal, destroy the human fleet before it spread any further. They didn't understand that it was already too late. Back aboard the Vengeance, Admiral Markov stood before the viewport again. The stars looked different now, closer somehow, like eyes watching from the dark. Her officers stood behind her, waiting. No one spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. They'll come, she said. The whole galaxy will come. Her second officer nodded. Can we win, ma'am? Markov didn't answer right away. She looked down at her hands, scarred, shaking slightly. Winning isn't what we do, she said quietly. We survive, that's enough. She turned away, eyes hard again. Signal Earth Command. Tell them the Council has chosen war. Outside, the wreckage of Helios Gate continued to burn. The glow reflected across the hulls of human ships, casting long shadows across the stars. To the galaxy, it was the beginning of the darkest war in history. To humanity, It was just another chapter in a story that began on a small blue planet that refused to die. And somewhere in the cold silence between stars, the message of the galactic beacon still pulsed. We seek peace, we welcome all life. But now the light flickered, because those who had come were not seekers of peace. They were the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars. And the galaxy had made its first mistake. It had reminded them how to fight. The galaxy had never known fear before Helios. Not true fear, not the kind that sits in your throat and steals your voice. After the destruction of the first Council fleet, the alien world screamed for vengeance. Armies were raised, fleets built, alliances reforged. The coalition of the enlightened was born, a force unlike anything in recorded history. It was meant to crush the humans, to erase them before they could become a threat. It was meant to prove that peace could not be broken by one violent species. But what the galaxy didn't understand was simple. Humanity did not seek conquest. They had come only because someone called them, and when attacked, they only did what they had done for millennia. They fought back. And when humanity fought, they never fought halfway. The second wave came 3 weeks after the first battle. 5,000 alien ships from 20 different species, armed with every weapon the galaxy could produce. They arrived at Helios Gate, the same battlefield where the first fleet had died. The gate's ring still glowed dimly, broken, its great arcs drifting like bones in orbit. The humans were waiting. Only 10,000 ships. Dark-scarred, silent. To the aliens, it looked like arrogance. To the humans, it was survival. They didn't need numbers. They needed precision and resolve. Admiral Ria Markov stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, staring at the sensor displays. The air smelled of metal and oil. Every system was hot, humming, alive with power. Her officers waited for orders, hands trembling over controls. They knew what was coming. They knew the odds. "Incoming transmission, ma'am," the comms officer said. Markov nodded, put it through. The hologram flickered to life, an alien admiral with silver scales and long, insect-like limbs. His armor gleamed like glass. "Terran Admiral," he said, his voice sharp and smooth. "You stand against all of civilization. Surrender now and your people will be spared extinction." Markov didn't blink. "You already tried that," she said. "Didn't work out." The alien hissed, his mandibles twitching. "We gave you a chance for peace." "You fired first," she replied. "Now we finish it." The channel cut. The alien commander turned to his crew and gave a simple order. "Exterminate them." The stars ignited. Thousands of energy blasts filled the void, beams, plasma bolts, rail slugs, drone swarms, a storm of light and death. The vacuum burned with the fury of 1,000 suns. The humans didn't move. At least not yet. They absorbed the first wave behind overlapping magnetic shields and thick armor. Some ships cracked, some burned, but they held the line. The humans had fought in worse, in the fires of dying worlds, in skis that rained acid, in cities buried under nuclear ash. When the alien fleets paused to reload, Admiral Markov spoke 3 quiet words. "All batteries fire." The Terran fleet answered with thunder. Hundreds of railguns roared at once, their recoil shaking space itself. Each shot was a spear of mass and fury, invisible until it hit, unstoppable once it moved. Alien ships vanished in perfect silence, turned to vapor and light. Missiles streaked from human carriers, warheads burning blue as they curved around enemy formations. Drones, old human designs repurposed from mining bots and construction rigs, swarmed like hornets, detonating against hulls. The void became fire, and the galaxy finally saw what humanity meant by war. Inside the alien fleet, panic spread like disease. Their targeting systems couldn't lock on to the human ships. The kinetic rounds moved too fast. Their shields flickered and failed. Every formation they tried dissolved under the weight of human precision. Admiral Zynar, the alien commander, watched as his fleets burned. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His chief officer trembled. "They adapt, sir. Every shot they fire, they adjust. They're learning us in real time." "That's impossible." "They are human, sir. Maybe it is." On the Vengeance, Ria Markov's voice stayed calm, almost gentle. Target the cruisers on the far flank. They're losing formation. Confirmed. Don't waste missiles. Conserve fuel. Fight smart, make it count. Her crew obeyed without question. They trusted her more than they trusted the stars. Every shot they fired was another mark in the dark history of their species, another proof that humanity didn't die easily. Half the alien fleet was gone in an hour. The other half tried to retreat. That was when the humans moved forward. The human dreadnoughts pushed through the wreckage, engines flaring white-hot. They advanced like beasts breaking their chains, unstoppable, relentless. Their guns fired until barrels melted, then switched to backups. Their armor burned red with heat. One alien commander tried to ram a human ship to stop them. The Unity turned broadside and fired point-blank, splitting the alien vessel in two. Another ship, the Warden of Dawn, took a direct hit to its engines. The captain refused to abandon ship. He locked his helm and drove the burning hulk straight into the enemy carrier line. The explosion lit the gate like a new sun. He went down fighting, someone whispered on the Vengeance. That's the only way we go, Markov said quietly. By the end, there was nothing left to fight. The Coalition fleet, the pride of the galaxy, was gone. Helios Gate was a graveyard of light, surrounded by drifting bodies and shattered ships. And at its center, the Terran fleet still stood. When the survivors fled, their reports spread like fire through the galaxy. They spoke of black ships that did not fear death, of weapons that defied reason, of humans who fought with the calm of gods and the cruelty of nature itself. Some said they saw the Terran Admiral herself standing at her viewport, watching the flames, her eyes cold as space. Others swore they heard a transmission, a simple broadcast on every open frequency, a message for the galaxy to remember. This is humanity. We did not come to conquer. We came because you called. You wanted to meet the universe. Now you have. And we are not what you hoped for. After Helios Gate, no one sent more fleets. No one dared. Entire civilizations went silent. Worlds surrendered without a shot. Diplomatic envoys begged for peace, for mercy, for forgiveness. And the humans, those strange, scarred survivors from a dead world, simply stood among the ruins, silent. They didn't celebrate. They didn't boast. They just repaired their ships, buried their dead, and moved on. Because to them, war was not glory. It was breathing. They had done what they always did. They survived. From that day on, the galaxy changed. Helios Gate became a warning, a place no ship dared to cross without permission. The aliens named it the grave of the enlightened. But the humans had another name for it. They called it the reckoning. Helios Gate was quiet now. The wreckage still floated, broken ships spinning slowly, caught in the weak pull of a dying orbit. The light of two suns shone off melted armor and cracked glass. No one came here anymore. No alien dared. But one ship remained, ISS Vengeance, the old Terran flagship, scarred but alive. Its hull bore new names now, engraved beside the old ones, soldiers, engineers, medics, and children born between the stars. Inside its bridge, Admiral Ria Markov stood alone. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder. Her hair was gray now. Her eyes looked tired but not weak, never weak. Behind her, the faint hum of the ship's engines was the only sound. The war was over. The galaxy had gone silent. And silence, to her, was more terrifying than any battle. The aliens had stopped fighting, but they hadn't stopped wondering. Who were these humans? Where did they come from? What kind of world could create beings so ruthless and unbreakable, and yet so calm in their destruction? The council sent researchers, historians, priests. Some came in secret, disguised as refugees. Others sent drones to follow human fleets from a distance. They gathered fragments of data, intercepted transmissions, decoded languages. And slowly, painfully, they began to piece together the story of Earth. It started with ruins. Abandoned colonies on Mars, silent outposts in the asteroid belt, burned ships drifting near Saturn's rings. Everywhere they looked, they found the same thing, evidence of struggle. Wars fought over oceans, resources, beliefs. Wars fought between brothers, between nations, between stars. Wars that destroyed civilizations, yet somehow never destroyed them. One alien scholar, a soft-voiced archivist named Talon, wrote the first detailed report about humanity's past. He called it the memory of Earth. He wrote, "Their history is not a straight line, but a storm. They die and rebuild, burn and rise again. They do not evolve through peace, they evolve through pain." He watched ancient human videos, shaky recordings from soldiers in muddy trenches, drones flying over ruined cities, astronauts looking down on a planet still on fire. The aliens cried watching them. The humans had not. Admiral Markov sat alone in her quarters, reading the intercepted alien transmissions. She knew what they were saying, what they were discovering. A part of her wanted to stop them, another part didn't care. If the galaxy wanted to understand, then they needed to see it all, the good and the horror both. She remembered her grandfather telling her about the old wars, about the sky filled with fire when the Earth's nations destroyed each other, about the famine that came after, the cold that followed. "We forgot what it meant to live," he had said, "so we learned what it meant to survive." That was humanity's inheritance. Not peace, not glory. Survival. And survival, she knew, always had a cost. Far across the stars, in the alien capital of Krython Prime, the council gathered to discuss the memory of Earth. The chamber was filled with silence as the archivist Talon played one of the final human recordings. A battlefield gray and burned, a soldier carrying a wounded friend through smoke, explosions in the distance. The camera shaking, then focusing on a child crying, holding a picture of a blue planet. "This is what made them," Talon said softly. "They were born from this." The council members stared at the image, their delicate faces pale. Some couldn't watch, others whispered in disbelief. How could a species survive this much pain? How could they still have hope? Talon looked up. Because they never had a choice. On the Vengeance, the bridge lights dimmed. A storm of static swept through the comms network, an incoming transmission from the council itself. Markov accepted the call. The image that appeared was not a warrior or a leader. It was Talon, the archivist, his eyes wide and sorrowful. "Admiral Markov," he said, his voice trembling. "We have seen what you came from, your world. It was a grave, yet you made it into a cradle again. We did not understand. We called you monsters." Markov said nothing. Her face was stone. "But you are not monsters," Talon continued. "You are survivors. You are what happens when life refuses to end." Markov's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "And now you understand why we fight." "Yes," Talon whispered, "and why we will never fight you again." The transmission ended. Markov stood there a long time, staring at the empty screen. She wanted to feel something: relief, pride, maybe even peace, but all she felt was tired. Later in the crew quarters, the younger officers gathered around a small holo display showing old images of Earth. Forests, oceans, clouds, children laughing. Some of them had never seen it except in pictures. "It's beautiful," one whispered. "It was," another said, "before we destroyed it." "Do you think we could ever go back?" "Maybe one day," someone murmured, "when we've earned it." Markov stood at the doorway, listening. Their voices were soft, full of something rare among humans' hope. She let them talk, she didn't stop them. For once, she allowed herself to believe in it too. In the years that followed, the truth about Earth spread across the galaxy. Worlds that once mocked humanity now built memorials to them. Statues of Terran soldiers stood beside alien shrines, not as conquerors, but as reminders of strength. Some species began to change. They stopped calling themselves enlightened. They stopped pretending peace was easy. They began to rebuild harder and wiser. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what peace really cost. But even as peace spread, the fear remained. Because everyone knew that if another war ever came, if another enemy ever rose, humanity would return. And when they did, the stars themselves would burn again. Admiral Rhea Markov retired on the 10th anniversary of Helios Gate. She lived quietly on one of the new Terran colonies, far from the fleets and the weapons. She spent her days watching the sunrise, a habit she said was left over from Earth. When she died, her last words were simple. "Tell them we only wanted to survive." The galaxy mourned her. Even the council held a moment of silence. And somewhere beyond the rim, the Vengeance still drifted through the dark, its hull carrying the engraved names of the fallen, old and new. The ship was silent now, powered down, a relic of another time. But sometimes, when passing ships flew too close, their sensors would pick up a faint transmission, an echo looping endlessly through the static. We survived, and that was how the galaxy remembered humanity. Not as gods, not as monsters, but as the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars, the species that taught the stars what endurance truly meant. The galaxy had changed, but the Apex Council had not. They still believed they ruled it. For centuries, the Apex Council had been the voice of peace, 10 ancient species who claimed to speak for all life. They built the galactic laws, the trade routes, the treaties. Their cities floated above suns, their ships gleamed like glass. They believed they were eternal, untouchable. Until humanity came. Until Helios Gate burned. Now fear sat inside every council chamber like smoke. The council met in secret on the world of Krython Prime. The meeting chamber was a cathedral of light, crystal walls, hovering seats, a sky of shifting colors. Yet beneath all its beauty, the air was cold. At the center stood the Grand Speaker, Varin of the Solari, tall, silver-skinned, eyes glowing like twin stars. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled. "The humans are consolidating power," he said. "They have taken the Helios system and secured the surrounding sectors. They call it the Terran Accord." The word Terran filled the room like thunder. An elder from the Varric species hissed, his tendrils shaking. "They refuse our authority. They reject our laws. We cannot allow that. The council must restore order." A scholar from the Arvani leaned forward. "Order, you mean control. The humans do not seek to rule the galaxy. They only defend themselves." "Defend," the elder snapped. "They destroyed 5,000 ships." "Because we attacked them." The chamber erupted in noise, shouts, arguments, fear wrapped in pride. Finally, the Grand Speaker raised his hand. The hall fell silent. "The humans must be brought to heel," he said. "We cannot allow one violent species to decide the fate of all." And that was their final mistake. On the bridge of the ISS Vengeance, Admiral Ria Markov watched the transmission with a blank expression. The Council's words echoed across the holoscreen, each one colder than the last. "They still believe they can control us," her second officer muttered. Markov's voice was low. "They never learned. They see power, not people." She turned to her crew. "Prepare the fleet. We end this today." The Terran fleet jumped to Krython space in perfect formation. 20,000 ships, black and heavy, engines burning white. To the galaxy, it looked like the end of days. Krython Prime was a jewel of the stars, wrapped in gold clouds and blue oceans. Its orbital defense rings were the most advanced in existence. The Council believed it was impregnable. They were wrong. When the humans arrived, the Council sent their strongest fleets to meet them, shining armadas, millions of ships aligned like blades of light. The human ships were fewer, smaller, uglier. But they carried something no alien vessel had ever possessed. Purpose. The first shots fired at dawn, Krython's twin suns rising behind the battle. The alien fleets opened with energy cannons that could melt moons. Beams of light crossed the void like rivers of fire. But the humans didn't retreat. They moved forward. Missiles tore through the first line of alien cruisers. Railgun fire shattered defense platforms. The Council's command ships tried to regroup and found themselves blind, jammed, and targeted. "How are they doing this?" a Council captain screamed. "They're inside our systems." The humans were. Their hackers had broken through the Council's networks, taking control of their defense grid. Satellites turned against their masters. Automated drones turned their guns inward. Within minutes, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was burning. In the Council chamber, alarms wailed. The skies outside glowed red. Ships fell from orbit like meteors. The Grand Speaker turned to his guards. "Summon the planetary shields, now." "They're not responding." "Then send word to the fleets." "There are no fleets left, sir." The Grand Speaker froze. In that moment, for the first time in 1,000 years, the rulers of the galaxy realized they were powerless. Then the transmission came. The image appeared above the chamber, Admiral Rhea Markov, standing on her bridge, eyes hard, her face lit by the glow of war. "This is Admiral Markov of the Terran Fleet," she said. "You called yourselves the Apex Council. You believed yourselves gods. You sent armies to kill us. You destroyed our people, our ships, our peace." Her voice grew colder. "You wanted control. You wanted to decide who lives and who dies. And you thought we would kneel." The chamber was silent. Every council member watched her face, unable to speak. "We are not your subjects," she continued. "We are not your children. We are the descendants of a world that tried to kill us every day, and we learned to kill back. You thought peace was your birthright. We learned that peace is a victory that must be fought for." Her eyes narrowed. "You invited us here. You sent your beacon across the stars. You said you wanted to meet life beyond your worlds. Well, now you have." Her gaze turned to the camera, sharp as a blade. "You wanted gods, you found survivors." Then she gave the order. "Fire." The bombardment began. Orbital strikes lit the sky, the oceans boiled, the cities burned, the towers of glass and light fell like sand. No one could stop it. The humans didn't aim for extinction. They aimed for memory, for proof. They destroyed the Council's weapons, their palaces, their symbols of pride. They left the survivors alive to see what they had done. And when it was over, Krython Prime was quiet. Half the planet glowed with fire. The other half slept under the shadow of Terran ships. The next day, Admiral Markov transmitted one final message. "To the surviving members of the Apex Council, the war is over. You are free. Free to rule yourselves, free to speak, free to live. But you are no longer gods. The age of empires is over. From now on, peace will not belong to the powerful. It will belong to those willing to defend it." Then she cut the channel. In the silence that followed, the galaxy held its breath. Worlds that once knelt to the Council began to rise, independent, defiant, free. Some built alliances with the humans, calling them protectors. Others stayed far away, whispering their names only in fear. The Apex Council never reformed. Their great chamber lay in ruins, open to the stars. The surviving leaders scattered, exiled, forgotten. But on the walls of that broken city, someone carved a line in ancient Terran script. They came as survivors, they left as legends. Admiral Rhea Markov stood once more at the bridge of the Vengeance. Her fleet hung in orbit, silent among the stars. Her second officer approached. "It's done, ma'am. The Council has fallen." She didn't answer right away. She looked out at Krython's burning surface. "No," she said softly. "It's never done. Peace is never done." He hesitated. "Then what do we do now?" Markov's gaze hardened. "We watch, we remember, and if they forget." She turned away. "We remind them." And so the Apex Council fell, not to greed, not to invasion, but to the consequence of their own arrogance. The galaxy would never forget that day. Because when the humans spoke, the stars listened. And when they fought, the universe itself bowed in silence. The war was over. But the silence that followed was heavier than war itself. The stars had grown quiet, too quiet. No more council orders. No more fleets crossing systems. The great beacons of communication that once carried the words of 1,000 species now pulsed weakly, like dying hearts. The Apex Council was gone. And in its absence, there was only one power left that all others whispered about. Humanity. The Terran fleet didn't celebrate. There were no parades, no songs, no joy. They drifted in orbit above Krython Prime, repairing their ships and collecting their dead. Admiral Rhea Markov walked through the hangar decks of the ISS Vengeance. Everywhere she looked, there were reminders of the price they had paid: the burned armor, the sealed caskets, the quiet faces of soldiers staring at the stars with empty eyes. She stopped beside one of the memorial walls, where names had been etched into steel. Her own brother's name was among them. She touched the engraving gently, her hand trembling. "We survived," she whispered, "but at what cost?" The words vanished into the hum of the ship. Across the galaxy, word of the Council's fall spread like fire through dry grass. On hundreds of worlds, banners were torn down. Statues of the old rulers were shattered. Colonies that had once bowed to the Council's rule rose up, shouting freedom into the sky. But even as the galaxy celebrated, fear lingered beneath every cheer. Because everyone knew who had made it possible. And they knew what those people were capable of. In the city of Varnes, once the heart of council power, the alien historian Talon walked through streets covered in ash. He carried a small recorder and spoke softly to himself. "The humans do not occupy," he said. "They do not enslave, they destroy what threatens them, then they leave it behind. It is terrifying, and yet." He looked up at the horizon, where human medships now landed, carrying supplies, food, and aid for survivors. And yet they rebuild what they destroy, they heal what they break. They are not conquerors, they are reminders. He turned off the recorder and stared up at the orbiting Terran fleet, shining like a wall of stars. They are the proof that survival has a price. Months passed, the Terran Accord was formed. It was not an empire nor a kingdom. It was a promise, a fragile network of worlds that swore to defend peace with strength. Human envoys traveled across systems, not demanding obedience but offering unity. They rebuilt trade routes, protected colonies, helped species rebuild their burned homes. But even as they helped, their shadows followed them. When a Terran dreadnought entered orbit, the people of those worlds fell silent. When a Terran officer spoke, leaders listened. The humans didn't need to threaten anyone anymore. Their reputations spoke louder than weapons. One day, a young alien ambassador named Kyla from the Iron Confederacy stood before Admiral Markov on the Vengeance. Her hands trembled as she bowed. "Admiral," she said softly, "we do not wish to fear you, but we do. How can we trust you when your power is so great?" Markov looked at her for a long time. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were filled with years of exhaustion. "Fear is natural," she said. "We feared each other for centuries back on Earth, but we learned something." She stepped closer. "Fear can destroy you or it can teach you. It can make you stronger, wiser. You can let it rule you or you can learn from it." Kyla nodded slowly. "And what about you, Admiral? What do you fear?" Markov's gaze softened. "Ourselves." In time, human and alien fleets began to patrol together. The Terran Accord built stations that orbited neutral worlds, not as rulers, but as guardians. Still, there were whispers. Some species called the humans the keepers. Others called them the ghosts of Earth. And others, especially those who remembered the old council, spoke their name with a trembling kind of reverence. The survivors. But not everyone accepted peace. Deep in the outer rim, remnants of the council's armies gathered in secret. They swore revenge, whispering that the humans were tyrants in disguise. They built new ships, plotted in the dark. One such fleet tried to strike again, small, desperate, but filled with hate. They launched an assault on a young colony world, expecting panic. Instead, they found the Terran fleet waiting for them. The Vengeance was there, engines burning brighter than ever. When the alien ships appeared, Markov didn't even give an order to fire. The attackers saw the Terran formation, silent, disciplined, unstoppable, and they froze. Then they fled. Not a single shot was fired. That was the moment the galaxy realized something profound. The humans no longer needed war to win. Their presence alone was enough. Years passed. Ria Markov grew old, her hair turning white, her eyes soft with time. She rarely spoke in public, but when she did, her words became law. On the 10th anniversary of the Council's fall, she stood before a gathering of hundreds of species, the new leaders of the Accord. Her voice carried across the stars. "We have seen what power can do. We have seen what fear can build and what it can destroy. We have fought, bled, and burned. But from that fire, something new was born." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "Peace is not the absence of war. It is the strength to choose not to fight, even when you can. Remember that. Because if you forget it, if you ever raise your weapons again in arrogance or greed." Her eyes hardened. "Then the survivors of 1,000 wars will rise once more." The room was silent. No one doubted her. When Admiral Markov died years later, she was buried not on Earth, for Earth was still healing, but on Helios Gate, the place where the galaxy had learned fear. Her tomb was simple, a slab of black metal engraved with one line. Here lies Ria Markov, who taught the stars to remember. Her fleet saluted in silence, their engines burning in formation one last time. And then they left, drifting into the dark like ghosts. Centuries later, travelers who passed through the Helios system often claimed they could still hear faint echoes, not of battle, but of voices. Some said it was only the wind against metal. Others swore they heard the words of an ancient transmission, looping endlessly through the static. We are not gods. We are not monsters. We are only survivors. And every world, every race, every being who heard it remembered what happened when humanity answered the call of the stars. They remembered the fleets that burned, the wars that ended, the peace that followed. And they whispered with awe and fear and respect. No alien came. Only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived. Centuries passed. Stars were born and died. Empires rose and fell. But the memory of Earth's children never faded. Every world, every species, every civilization across the Milky Way spoke their name with a strange mix of reverence and fear. Humanity. They were no longer just soldiers or conquerors. They had become something far greater, a force of nature. The Terran Accord had grown, stretching across hundreds of systems. Its symbol, a simple circle of blue and white, representing the Earth, hung over city halls, starports, and even temples. To some, it meant safety. To others, it meant warning. But to all, it meant power. On the quiet world of Aurelia, a small child once asked her teacher, "Is it true the humans destroyed the gods?" The teacher smiled sadly. "No, little one, they only destroyed those who thought they were gods." The class laughed, but the truth beneath the words was heavy. For in the age of the Terran Accord, no one ruled through fear, except the memory of what happened when humanity was provoked. The ISS Vengeance still drifted through the stars. It had become a monument now, orbiting Helios Gate, the same battlefield where everything began. Its engines were silent, its guns cold, but lights still burned in its corridors, powered by reactors that would never die. Pilgrims came to see it, soldiers, historians, even alien children. They would walk through its hollow halls, touch the metal walls, and read the engraved names of those who fought there. At the ship's heart stood a memorial, a single black stone, smooth as glass. On it were carved words that every visitor memorized. No alien came, only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived. And beneath it, another inscription, written by an unknown hand long ago. They came not to conquer, they came to remind us what life does when death is not enough. The galaxy was peaceful now, but peace born of fear is a fragile thing. The Terran Accord enforced it with silent strength. No one dared raise weapons against another world. Pirates vanished before they could strike. Rebellions ended before they began. The rumor was always the same: the Terrans are watching. Some doubted it, some even mocked it. Until one day, a rebellion tried to rise in the shadow systems. They declared independence not from oppression, there was none, but from pride. They wanted to prove that the galaxy had outgrown its need for the humans. For a month, they celebrated. Then one morning, they woke to see shadows in their sky, 10 Terran warships descending, silent and vast. The rebels sent no pleas, no missiles, no words. They surrendered before the humans spoke a single sentence. The ships left without firing a shot. And once again, the galaxy remembered who held the peace. Far from the core worlds, in the Terran capital built above Mars, the new High Admiral of the Accord, a young woman named Lyra Markov, great-granddaughter of Rhea, stood in her command room. Before her floated a map of the known galaxy, thousands of systems glowing like sparks in the dark. An aide approached quietly. "High Admiral," he said, "the last of the outer colonies have joined the Accord. There is no more war." Lyra studied the glowing stars for a long time. "There's always war," she said softly, "somewhere, somewhen." The aide hesitated. "Then what do we do now?" Lyra turned, her eyes the same steely gray as her ancestor. "We remember, we guard, we endure." And humanity did endure. They did not expand endlessly, they did not enslave. Instead, they built great cities of light that floated between stars. Worlds reborn with new forests, new oceans, and skies clean again. They guided other species not as rulers but as mentors. They shared their science, their medicine, their history, and their warning. Every student in every academy across the galaxy learned about Earth's wars. They studied the burning of old cities, the fall of the Apex Council, and the rise of the Accord. They learned that peace was not a gift. It was a scar healed but never forgotten. Sometimes, when travelers looked up from alien worlds, they could see Terran patrols drifting through the night sky, black ships moving like ghosts, engines silent, lights dimmed. They never spoke, they never intervened unless they had to. But their presence alone was enough. Children would point to them and whisper, "The humans are watching." And their parents would bow their heads and say, "Good." 1,000 years after Helios Gate, a lone scholar named Talon III, descendant of the first archivist who chronicled the memory of Earth, stood inside the museum built on the remains of the Apex Council's chamber. He had spent his life studying humanity, trying to understand how one fragile species from a single world could change the entire shape of the stars. In his final report, he wrote, "They are not the strongest. They are not the smartest. But they are the most dangerous. Because they never give up. Because they look at the void and see not fear but home." He looked up at the sky through the broken glass roof, at the distant glimmer of a human ship passing in orbit. "They have become the peace they once bled for," he whispered, "and the galaxy will never forget the price." As centuries turned to millennia, the humans faded into legend. Some believed they still ruled from the shadows. Some said they had ascended, beyond flesh and stars, into something greater. And some swore that, even now, their fleets slept in hidden places, ready to awaken if the galaxy ever forgot their lesson. Whatever the truth, the result was the same. No one dared challenge the balance they created. The universe was quiet, and in that quiet, the echo of their name remained. In the heart of Helios Gate, deep within the ISS Vengeance, a single system still ran, ancient, eternal. A recording, centuries old, played on a loop. The voice was old but clear. The voice of Rhea Markov. "If you're hearing this, it means peace has lasted. Good, that's all we ever wanted. Remember who we were, remember what we did. Because the day you forget us is the day you'll need us again." The message ended, and the silence returned. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, vast, cold, eternal. But among them burned one small, blue world. Old Earth. Its scars had healed. Its oceans were bright again. Its people lived under skies that once burned with fire, now filled with light. They looked to the heavens, not in fear but in pride. Because they knew that somewhere out there, their ancestors were still watching, still guarding. Humanity had not vanished. They had become something more. A myth, a warning, a promise. And in every corner of the galaxy, from the oldest worlds to the farthest stars, every child learned the same words, whispered in awe, spoken with respect, carved into stone and memory alike. No alien came. Only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived.